Now moving on and looking at the rest of the systems, as far as digestion, in their mouth they have these useless teeth basically. They've got maxillary teeth in their upper jaw that run along the top edge. And then they have two vomeron teeth that are in the roof of their mouth and their palate. And this is how they hold and pierce their prey. And when you do the dissection, make sure that you feel for these teeth. The tongue, though, is very unique because the tip of the tongue is folded backward toward the throat and the front of the tongue is attached. It's also very sticky, so they can sling it out and pull it back in, and since it's sticky, it holds on to the prey. The food goes from the mouth to the esophagus to the J-shaped stomach into the small intestine, which has the duodenum, and that's where most digestion occurs. And there are large digestive glands, and the liver and the pancreas and the gallbladder are there. And then you have the large intestine, which is the jejunum, the ileum, and then the rectum and colon, and then the anus at the end. We've said before, when they're larvae, they breathe with gills. When they are adults, they breathe with their lungs. A lot of them also breathe through their very thin skin, which is always kept moist because of all the mucus. And there's a lot of blood vessels in their skin, so they can get their oxygen directly from the water. But the adult frogs do have paired, simple sac-like lungs. And they don't have ribs or a diaphragm, and their chest muscles are not involved in their breathing. So they can breathe just by opening their mouth and letting air flow into the windpipe. But they can also breathe with their mouth closed. As we said before, the larval tadpole have 2 chambers in their heart. Adults, it's 3 chambers with 2 atria and 1 ventricle. The frog heart is the only organ that's in the coelom, and it has a pericardium protecting it. The oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood that has the waste products in it both go into the ventricle, but they don't mix because of the way the ventricle is set up, arranged. And then frog blood has plasma, the liquid part that carries all the cells, the red blood cells and the white blood cells, just like ours does. Some aquatic adults and the larvae have these multi-directional sensory systems. All amphibians here. And frogs and salamanders have good vision. Caecilians, you know, their eyes are covered with skin or bone, so they have to act on chemical cues that will conduct stimuli to their olfactory centers. Again, voice production, that's the job of the male, and it's very specific to the species, and they use it for warning, defense, and breeding. The salamanders and caecilians' noises are more like coughs and grunts, but they don't think that's for communication. It's just a noise they make. The nervous system is very highly developed. They have a brain, a spinal cord, and nerves. And the brain corresponds to ours. The medulla regulates involuntary autonomic functions like digestion and respiration. The cerebellum coordinates their body posture and muscles. The cerebrum is very small, though. A frog only has 10 cranial nerves. We have 12. And they only have 10 pairs of spinal nerves, and we have 30 pairs. They have 2 simple holes for their nostrils, and as I mentioned before, they have that nictitating membrane that's drawn up over the eyeball that they pull in because they don't have eyelids that move. They don't have an external ear, so the tympanic membranes or the eardrums are exposed. And a frog has 1 bone in their middle ear, and we have 3 in ours. As far as their endocrine and exocrine system, they have a pineal gland, just like the fish does, and it's near the skin, and all it does is function to detect light. Their liquid waste goes from their kidneys through the ureters to the bladder, just like ours does. Their solid waste that come from the large intestine go into the cloaca. So both the liquid and the solid waste material are going to leave the body by the cloaca at the cloacal vent. As far as their immune system, they found that there's certain identified genes that help them develop resistance to harmful bacteria and disease. And so they're hoping that maybe by discovering that and doing more research, they can protect frog populations that are in the wild.